Last year, the United Nations reported that we're moving backwards in our efforts to eliminate world hunger and malnutrition. 828 million people were affected in 2021, and the number keeps on rising. So with all the technology that we have, and all the NGOs, and all the benevolence, and a God who says that He's love and He loves us, why can't we solve world hunger? Welcome to Gems of Truth. My name is Vincent Boujor, and that seems like a legitimate question, right? Why doesn't God solve world hunger right now? Well, before we answer that, let me tell you something. Jesus said in Matthew 26:11 to His disciples, "The poor you will always have with you." John 12:8 confirms that, and that actually isn't a new saying. God was already saying it in the Old Testament. "For the poor will never cease from the land, therefore I command you, saying, you shall open your hand wide to your brother, to your poor and your needy in your land." Deuteronomy 15:11. Now, as a Bible-believing Christian, I'm making that bold claim right now, and I'm saying, we will never solve world hunger, and the Bible actually predicted it. I mean, think about this, right? We can send people to the moon, we can 3D print like prosthetic arms and legs, and we can instantly talk to someone who's on the other side of the planet, but world hunger? Nah, we can't solve it. And Jesus said it 2,000 years ago, and Moses was writing about it 4,000 years ago, and they were right. But you want to know why? The answer is actually in the Bible verse that I just shared with you. Look at Deuteronomy 15 again. There's a commandment there. It says, "Therefore I command you," it's straight from God, and then He says, "You shall open your hand wide to your brother, to your poor and your needy in your land." Friends, the reason why we can't solve world hunger and why it still exists today is because of our selfishness, my selfishness. It's because we don't do exactly what the Bible verse says. We don't open our hands wide to our brothers and sisters in need. Now check this out. The Israelites back then were paying a second tithe, so 10%, to the poor and needy. They brought this money to the sanctuary, and it was basically there so that the poor people could participate in the religious feast, right? It was kind of like a sponsorship money. And then every 3 years, they would use that money, that second tithe, to actually help the poor and needy in their homes. So they would not give that money to the sanctuary, but they would use it at home to be hospitable, to provide food and shelter, right? To really help the poor people. God made so many laws to make sure that the poor people have everything they need. The poor were allowed to get a certain amount of produce. They also had leftovers from the harvest. And every 7 years, the poor were allowed to harvest the food on the fields. They also got all of their debt canceled after 7 years. Now think about this. Today we're like struggling with our student loans for like 30 years. Now God initiated all of these laws and rules and regulations to make sure that not one class would rise higher and higher and get wealthier, right? And the other class would sink lower and lower and lower. But that's exactly what's happening today. You know, my wife and I, we don't live far away from a very beautiful neighborhood in Southern California called La Jolla. And if you are there, you see beautiful properties, big homes. And the other day, we were just driving by there and going for a walk, and we were just looking at that, and we're like, wow, this is so big, so fancy, so huge, so shiny. Like if I'd lived there with my family, I wouldn't even use all of that. I couldn't even appreciate all of that wealth. It'll just be too much. I mean, sure, it's nice to have a beautiful house at the beach, right? But it can get to a point where you have so much that you can't even use all of that wealth, that luxury. Now get this, 1.1% of the global population holds almost half of the world's wealth. Let that sink in. 1% having almost half of the entire world's wealth. There are people today that have so much money in their bank accounts, even if they would go shopping day after day after day, they could not spend all of that money. Now, how does that make a poor person feel, right? They're getting jealous. They probably are struggling with covetousness, right? They might even get angry or violent, and it's like an evil cycle. Now, here's why God allows the poor to be here today. Now, He wants two things, okay? He wants the rich people to give freely, to be generous, to share, right? And He also wants the poor people to appreciate that, right? To work hard, to use their muscles and their intellect to be a blessing. Look at what God promised His people if they would keep these laws. Okay, listen to this. Then I will give you rain in its season, the land shall yield its produce, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. You shall eat your bread to the full and dwell in your land safely. I will give you peace in the land, and you shall lie down, and none will make you afraid. I will rid the land of evil beasts, and the sword will not go through your land. That sounds like what a lot of NGOs are trying to do today, right? They want the peace, right? They want everyone to be fed. And God said, I will give you all of that if you keep my commandments, if you actually do what I'm saying. All right, now let's summarize this. I have 3 major takeaways for you. Number 1, we will always have different classes of society being with us. The poor and needy, and the rich and the wealthy. We will have world hunger, and these things won't disappear until Jesus comes back again. But then we won't have any more hunger, we won't have social classes, and we will all live together as a big family. Takeaway number 2, it's because of the greed and selfishness of human beings that we have this wide gap today, and 828 million people don't have enough food. But takeaway number 3 is super important, okay? God does not distribute all of the money in the world equally to each person because He wants to use the differences that we have in order to make us more dependent on each other. He wants us to help each other. He wants both classes, the poor and the wealthy, to develop their characters, and that's exactly how we can do it. So I want to appeal to you right now if you're struggling financially. Don't get jealous. Don't start this bad habit of looking at other people's stuff. The Bible really prohibits that. Use your time and money well, and use your intellect and your muscles to be a blessing, to really help and serve the people that you work for. They need you, literally. And here's a short appeal to the wealthier ones. Be grateful for the workers you have, the support you're getting, the people you're hiring, and show them your appreciation. Oh, and always remember the words that Jesus said in Matthew 25. Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. That's including feeding the hungry, giving water to the thirsty, giving clothes to the needy, and shelter to the homeless, and visiting those who are sick and who are in prison. Let's use the differences that we have to help each other and to work together and to show Christ's love in our lives. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support, by the way, if you've been following us the last few months. I want to apologize for the long break that we had. My wife and I were moving, and we had a lot of things going on, but we're very grateful to be back and to serve you again. So make sure to subscribe and to hit that bell so that you won't miss any of our new videos. Also, let me know what you thought about this video and the Bible verses that I was sharing. If you have new topics or if you have questions about the videos that I made, put them in the comments. I'd love to read them and make new videos for you. I believe God's love is clearly visible today, and it just reminds me that we have to make a personal decision. God does not eradicate world hunger because we have a choice to make. And by the way, you know what you can also do? You can choose to believe. Believe in the prophecies of the Bible. They're powerful. Here are some videos that you can watch right now about the prophecies of the Bible. If you haven't seen them already, check them out.